Welcome to another Greenfield Dev Guild Builder Space. I believe this is number 15. Wow, we've been doing it for a while now. So for today's space, we're gonna be talking about public good staking and getting into how Ethereum staking, could be really regenerative and create sustainable yield for public goods. So, you know, many know the format. We're going to kind of have a past, present, and future approach where we're going to talk about our past with staking and how we got into it, how we learned about it. Then we're going to talk about some of the things we've been doing currently with Obol and Lido and the Greenfield Genesis Squad. And we'll talk about the future and kind of some ideas there. Feel free to chime in the chat with any thoughts, questions, ideas. And yeah, great to have everybody here. And yeah, let's get started. Okay, Ethereum staking. Right. Oh, but before I do that, before we get started, I forgot because typically, just like myself at times, let me introduce. Yeah, everybody, feel free to introduce yourself. Pass it over to Matt first to give a quick intro.
Nice, a pleasure to be here. I am a steward of the Greenfield Network, Greenfield New York City chapter, and the Writers Guild, and a lead of the Greenfield Dev Guild, and very proud member of the Regen Coordination Council, and doing a whole bunch of stuff like a lot of a lot of people in this space. And yeah, part of the Genesis Obol Squad Staking Squad. Pleasure to be here, everybody. And I'll kick it off to Trinity.
All right, so hello everyone, Trinity here, member Greenfield Network, Greenfield Writers Guild, RefIDAO, Regen Coordination Council. I do a lot of research on my spare time and professionality, so yeah, happy to be here. Okay, so I'll pass it to Luis.
Cool, thank you, Trinity. Hello everyone, I'm Luis. I'm from refinDAO, also from the Regen Coordination Council, and also on the local side of things, founder and lead of Refi Barcelona. I was quite involved in a few initiatives and now getting more connected to the crowd staking from Greenfield and so on. So I'm quite happy to be here and looking forward to seeing what will come up.
Nice. Nice. And I'll take more of a moderating role, and this kind of, I could chime in. And of course, you guys can ask me questions too if it's relevant. So yeah, I think our first area we could focus on is how we all got into staking and kind of learned about staking. And staking has a lot of different flavors, right? There's Ethereum staking, there's Gnosis staking, there's Rocket Pool staking. So there's a lot of ways you could kind of enter your first, kind of learning about what staking is as a primitive. But I'm just curious to hear from you guys. How did you first learn about it? Did you, participate in any early staking initiatives? Just, curious to hear guys' background. Maybe you could start with, Luis. Love to have you go.
Sure. From my side, I don't really have much experience like directly in staking, let's say like in validation and so on. But I think in general it's a really good concept also as like locking mechanisms, in like Web3, crypto, and so on. I think it's really good because quite often we have operational or like computational capacity and so on that is underused or like not being utilized. Also, a really big point, for instance, is treasuries. So a lot of times, like organizations, communities have funds in the treasury, and these are like idle. While at the same time they could be used like to be staked somewhere and be generating some yield. I think the moment now is quite like not so much directly to my personal experience, but I'd say like what I'm interested in seeing is now mechanisms that integrate staking with like the distribution. So an example that, a good example that I'd say is bread chain crowd staking mechanism. that now Breadchain is just being rebranded as Bread Co-op, and RefiDAO has been a recipient project since the beginning of the year, and now also transitioning the membership to Regen Coordination. So Regen Coordination is now becoming a member project of Bread Co-op, and being a recipient of the Bread Solidarity Fund. Another good example, I think, it's Octant V2 with the votes in which like staked funds can be generating yield, and like slowly, and this yield would be like, and potentially like other funds could be slowly being distributed to projects that could be milestone based and so on. So I also do think that this has a lot of potential for us to kind of break a little bit with the dependence on like specific cycles of funding, like Gitcoin rounds, that as much as they are good and have been like mostly maintaining the ecosystem till now, we do see the limitations that it brings, and that often basically projects get underfunded outside of these funding periods. So I think it's a good, like quite a good moment to be discussing all of these and see like how we can put that into practice. And that's it. Quite looking forward, and again happy to be here in the discussions.
Nice. I could step in from here. So I guess the question was experience with staking. My only experience has been owning an LST, owning RETH. I've never, well, before getting the DApp node and going through this process, it was the simple, press a couple buttons, turn vanilla ETH into RETH, and yeah, I mean that is technically taking part within the Ethereum staking ecosystem. And then I think as Luis was saying, a lot of what we're kind of getting into today and in general with like the public goods staking, I think it bleeds also out of just Ethereum validation as well. Like I think it's more like yield generation in general. And then if anybody hasn't read, Vitalik put out an article a handful of days ago, basically saying that like ultimately the big thing is low risk DeFi, and I couldn't agree more. I need to read it again. I might be framing it a little bit too much, just like within my head. But I've said to a couple of people talking about this article, it's like all these governance tools and coordination mechanisms. It's cool. It's pretty cool. But ultimately, like cooking in DeFi yields and like cooking that into these things, that's what makes it like really like a big deal in my opinion. So I guess reframing it back to this discussion, I think there's a handful of things. Obviously, I think squad staking is a big piece of the puzzle. But as Luis said, Octant Vaults is also super interesting. It's ultimately it's just like it's the same thing as the legacy world of you have capital. You can't just have the capital sitting in. You can't just have your dollars sitting in your checking account. You're going to get inflated away to nothing. That is basically still the same thing within our space here. And it's just a matter of being capital efficient. And then also what Luis was saying, where it's moving away from, okay, these GG rounds come, you get the capital, you make as much impact as possible with the capital. It's more, you get the capital, you sliced off whatever you need to continue operating and continue taking advantage of stuff. But it's like, we need to be building a strong foundation for the long run. So in my opinion, it's like, you take that other little hunk and you put it into, your savings, your retirement, your retirement account. And what is that? It's just going to sit there and compound forever. And you can utilize that yield. That's basically what the Octant strategy is. And it's not that elegant. It's a pretty simple, like financial sustainability primitive. I've been ranting for a little bit, but I think I covered at least a decent hunk of my initial thoughts there. So I'll let Trinity share some of his too.
All right. Okay. So with the idea of staking, okay. So I think in secondary school, right, I had this friend who was into the whole dark web thing. I think dark web was the whole trend then, whereby okay, if you know how to use the dark web, you're like kind of like the big guy, the gurus and things like that. So we got talking, and then he told me about Silk Road. So I went back home. I started reading on Silk Road, and then I started like seeing, okay, how payments were being handled. That was my first ever introduction to Bitcoin, right? And so from there, I started reading about Bitcoin, and then I now came down to Bitcoin mining, which was quite interesting, whereby you could like buy a device and then plug the device into an electric source, a power source, and then you're earning from it. So it was really interesting. But then going further, I found out that it was quite an expensive venture to do. So that's when I got into I started like, what are other ways like this whereby you could just put your crypto into something and then you're earning stably like from it, right? It's not like a high risk, high reward thing, like you're earning stable on it. So I found about Ethereum staking. It was quite expensive for me as at then. So I got into IOTEX. I don't know if you know IOTEX blockchain, right? So that was like the first blockchain I did staking on. I think I did it for about 6 months or so, and then the their mechanism, right? I wasn't understanding it, and I'm not a fan of keeping my money in something I don't understand. So, so yeah, and then yeah, we are talking about like public goods staking on Ethereum. So I think for me the goal, I think I've always been a fan of the whole regeneration ethos, but in a very pragmatic way, in the sense that make money with whatever mechanisms you have available, right, and then channel the yield from from um from those sources into funding the regeneration or funding what matters, like Bitcoin says. So for me, staking is like that way. It's one way to do that. It's like a very prominent way to do that. And then with public goods staking, right, with the way it's being planned and designed, right, it makes it more accessible for everyone and anyone to do it. So instead of one person just bringing in 32.8, a group of people could come together, contribute, and then get into it and then send the yield into whatever they want to fund, and which I feel like that's like the best thing crypto has ever made possible. And so then this is bearish, but then I think I'm waiting for Ethereum to fall down to 2,000 again, to $2,000 again. I want to buy some ETH, and I think that would be like a perfect market range for me to pick some ETH. Then the whole goal is like, okay, in the future, in the future, I get it like to use it for staking. Yeah.
I think that's a great love that, Trinity. I think that's a great segue to kind of, yeah, I definitely should give my background because I'm realizing I'm the OG when it comes to the staking business and shenanigans. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so you guys see my screen? Oh no, I gotta bring it on the stream. Oh no, there it is. You guys see it, right?
Now we do.
So yeah, talking about 32 ETH. My background with staking, it started, so when I got into Ethereum, it was still mining. And I'm a technical person to a degree, but that felt like a lot of effort. Like, at that time, GPUs were like a whole thing to try to buy and stuff. So when they announced the transition, the plan to transition to validating, they like made it very clear that 32 ETH. And Trinity's mentioning $2,000. At this time, ETH was like $200, probably even less times. So this was, and it was in the doldrums of, I don't know, like 2019, 2018, those times. And so I had a nice Web2 cushion engineering role. So every paycheck I was just buying ETH. So I could have enough to be a validator. So when they kicked off the validation, I actually could have been under the 1,000 epoch, but had some issues with my hardware. So I ended up validating, I think like a week after. Yeah, you can see like almost 10 days after my initial eligible epoch. But in essence, like, for a few years I staked. At times it wasn't even efficient. But you can see here the total income was 2.66. That like looking back now, that's great. And I'm not staking anymore because it's funny. It's like I came in as a degen to a degree, and then took all this money and invested it into the regen space. so I don't get it. But I still believe they'll pay back. Like, that's why we're here. So no worries about and I'm getting the capital in so many other ways. You know, the social connections, meeting you guys, and working with everybody, and learning how to community build and all these things. So I'm not worried about it. I honestly, it helped me a ton. I was able to sustain for a little bit. But just looking at that 2.66, like, I don't know, quick math, but that's 10%, almost 10%. And that's powerful, right? And that was just over a couple of years. So if we could do more of these type of staking, and I know it's gone down. When I started staking, it was like maybe around 5-7%. Now it's around like 3% like yield, but it's still something. And if you compound it, with different things over time, it really could scale. So yeah, I think for me, with my kind of like background, like, I think I first saw it as like, purely a financial opportunity, like, a strong investment. Like, okay, I believe ETH is going to go up. I'm gonna be earning yield. Like, this is a no-brainer. And I still think it is a no-brainer in a lot of ways. Even with ETH being 4K, it's still something to invest in. There's still new chains creating validators and wanting people to stake, and will have a lot of high level rewards early on for the early validators and stuff. So it's still ecosystem that we will see continue to compound on itself, right? From the base layer of Ethereum to other layers having their own validation and staking. And I think one thing to really like enshrine is how the merge was so impactful in kind of, one, of course, yeah, the carbon footprint, that was a big thing, but it really democratized. Like, I think we're gonna like really look back on that, like the access to Ethereum, and even though it's not as, it could get better, but to go from mining to staking was such a pivotal change for like people like me to get more skin in the game, and then hopefully we can see more transitions so that more people get skin in the game, and I think that's what we're trying to do here, right, with public good staking, and kind of build upon these protocols and combine them together. So yeah, really great to hear all you guys' like backgrounds getting into staking, and right, and already it's like unique. Like, I kind of come from like solo staking, like Matt mentioned, like restaking ETH. So like different ways to enter this space. So I think that's a great segue into kind of the present and where we are now, and kind of to set the stage over the past year within Greenpill. Well, actually, to set the stage, I think I'll pass it to you, Matt, to talk about New York City and kind of that initiative around staking with Obol, and then how that then kind of funneled into the dev guild. So yeah, I would love for you to kick us off there.
Nice. And one quick comment too. Ultimately, at the core, like really zooming all the way fully out, the thing that makes Ethereum great is the fact that it's decentralized and censorship resistant. And the way to maintain that, I think, to a large extent, is home staking, community stakers. Like if all the ETH was being staked by Coinbase and these major parties, like where does that actually lead us? Like isn't the whole point defeated at this point? So there is a huge level of that as well, where it's like, the point we were not just like swapping vanilla ETH into a liquid staking token and calling it a day. It's like, no, we're here to support public goods, and ultimately Ethereum is the base of all public goods to an extent. I think a lot of us would agree to that. So yeah, I just wanted to like really make a note there and say, like, this is important. This is very important besides just the degen financial sustainability of regenerative initiatives aspect as well. So yeah, I mean, this whole concept initially came from, shout out my man Luciano, the founder and steward of Greenfield, New York City. I don't even know how he found out about it. I feel like he knows everybody, but yeah, I think somebody at Obol kind of put it in front of him and was like, this could be a potential pathway for creating sustainable yield to fund, again, regenerative actions. So yeah, he introduced it to the chapter, and then eventually, I think I introduced it to Apo, and then kind of moved into like a dev guild project, because it is fairly technical, even with the dApp nodes that are like very plug and play compared to non-dApp nodes. But yeah, that was kind of the birth of this idea. And then so the genesis, it's Apo at the dev guild. There's a couple Greenfield New York City members, and then Greenfield Ottawa member as well. So yeah, I think that was basically the birth of it. It was really usual word of mouth, and then figuring it out as we go along. And time passes, and then accident. Here we are. We're like accidentally quasi experts on Lido CSM and all these weird, very in the weeds things. But that's life for you.
Yeah, that's so true, right? Like we know so much more about these things. Yeah, we're about a year in from when we kicked things off, I think, right? So we did testnet. I think we went live on testnet in November, and I think we were like, okay, we're gonna be live like this kickoff, soon. But then the Lido stake limit was already exceeded, so we had to wait up until now. To I think beginning of Q3, October, we'll get the stake, and we'll be able to start earning some yield on mainnet and really showing. But even yet, we still have earned some staked ETH because we did put in our bond with Lido, which we will touch upon kind of the structure with Obol and Lido. I guess maybe we should just go into that now because in that section. So let me share my screen again. Yeah, so Matt was mentioning Obol. So what Obol is in essence is it takes the kind of the requirements of just one person staking at 32 ETH, and it enables you to distribute that amongst a squad of people and validators. And what this enables is a more resiliency in the case of a node going down, people having uptime issues, and just accessibility, so people could, not if you don't have the 32 ETH, you could pull together 4 ETH for, from each other and kind of create a squad. And I think that's what's really attractive. That to me is that it's not solo staking is a very alone experience. So to have a squad and kind of be doing it in a very communal way, I think is very regenerative and ties in a lot of the ethos of what type of communities we're building, and it enables kind of a shared responsibility, which I think could be powerful, and then you could build upon that, and then and that enables building trust and all these other things. So Obol enables that with their DVT technology, which is just like a small software that runs on top of your existing node and enables this abstraction. And then from there, right, Obol provides you still need to bring the 32 ETH in order to participate, and that's where Lido comes into play. So Lido has this community staking module that they kicked off last year, and it basically provides you a way to get access to 32 ETH by providing a bond. So if I go ahead and connect my wallet, let's see. Yes, bear with me a sec. It's got to unlock my wallet. But it enables you to just provide a bond of around 1.5 to 2 ETH, depending on kind of if you are identified as a community stakers. So if you're identified as a community staker, you get some perks. You get cheaper bond and stuff. There are more rewards. But basically, in essence, with this CSM, you just provide some ETH. You get back the 32 ETH to then stake. And then as long as you're staying reliable and having uptime, you're going to earn some yield. It's not as much yield you might typically earn being a solo staker, but it's still something substantial, and then that enables you to grow that yield and maybe over time get more opportunities. So that's kind of Lido and Obol. And I'd love to pass over to Trinity and Luis to kind of get your guys' understanding of maybe Obol and Lido, even if you have questions too. But kind of what do you guys know about squad staking and these different primitives?
Okay, so going first, right? I think starting with Obol, I think Obol is like that platform, right, that allows a group of people come together and start up a validator cluster, or in essence a validator node, right? So I think that's what Obol helps with. So instead of just one person front running as a solo staker, you have a group of people doing it together, which could kind of help with resilience and redundancy, right? And then with Lido, I think Lido provides that initial collateral you need to stake, like the 32 ETH you need to start a validator node on Ethereum. Lido provides it for you. and then you just have to pay your bond. And I think compared to like what it would cost you to do as a solo staker, right? It makes things very, very much accessible, because I mean, a group of 5 people might have like, let's say 1.5 ETH to use as bond, but they might not have 32 ETH to provide like as the initial collateral. So I think they are very much helpful in terms of growing the community staking movement, if I should use that word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And from my side, I'd say basically, yeah, that like what was already shared is kind of the superficial, more or less superficial knowledge I had of it. We in Refa Barcelona, I think we've been connected to Julio. So Julio got a couple of debt nodes, and we have been basically planning to be running Obol on them, like either like joining a cluster or starting one possibly. But honestly, I'm not so like much connected in this side of things. But I basically that, and I do think that is also quite an interesting kind of like narrative or like ideological point somehow of like trying to push for decentralization, and like I think potentially like the idea, just to connect with the a bit more experience that or like the discussions that I've been part of. I think it's quite cool, the idea of like local nodes, chapters, and so on, also starting to become either like joining clusters or like starting clusters and so on, and kind of like spread kind of like the reach of like the network. And basically that from my side.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the mission here, right? So have these like where people look at these nodes in their community, like, you know, they're like they look at it with like reverent, you know, so a level of reverence, not too crazy, but like, you know, they're looking at like this is bringing us some income. This is something. It's not just oh, this is a piece of computer. What's this, you know, stupid technology? No, this is something that's valuable. And I actually forgot to mention one of the biggest benefits too with Obol is the Technique Credential program. And what that provides for validators and people want to get into staking is a way to get the validation that you have the skills and the reliability to do this well, which really hasn't existed. It's kind of been like this different allow lists and this different list of like addresses of like, oh, these people, you know, we're solo stakers for X amount of time, like, you know, but it's not based on anything of like going through a training or things of that nature. So Obol kicked this off to where as you go through kicking off a squad on testnet, then on mainnet, you then get different credentials. And these credentials open you up for, you know, more staking opportunities within the ecosystem, especially like we mentioned earlier with like L2s and different chains that are launching their own validators. So this is like an added, like another compounding effect of like getting this, you know, getting in early, participating in the squad also gets you recognized by these, you know, entities like Lido, EtherFi, eStaker, and opens you up for more opportunities. So I think that's another thing we're trying to tap into there too. And so there's, what is it, like the yield, of course, there's the credential for more opportunities, there's community infrastructure, like there's some, and then the privacy with having a node, like just stepping back, like we should even, honestly, Matt, we should talk about Dapino too, right? Because I think they're a big part of this equation, just from a hardware standpoint, and also simplifying simplifying the access and having to set up a node and how to run a node. So let's actually go over there real quick.
Yeah, that node obviously is more plug and play, but you could use any minimal viable staking hardware. So ethstaker.org/staking-hardware basically lays out like what is a minimal validator setup, if anybody's interested. Just a quick aside there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I threw another link to for the Obol docs in the YouTube chat as well.
Nice. So Dapino, I think, is a big part of the equation too, because that's how I got into. I think when I actually first started, I ran mini PC and my the own software, all command line, and it was annoying. It was a hassle. So then I bought a DAP node. definitely has like had like a premium cost to it. But man, it was just so easy after like this, plug and play, click around, set up some things. Of course, there's still like a nuance to like you got to understand like what you're doing, what you're setting up, but it definitely focuses on that staking experience and making it very accessible. And I think if they continue to hone in on that and make it even more accessible over time, like I definitely see Dappnode being like a lot of the way that people interface with staking uh, going forward. And basically, they have an OS, so an operating system that you can install on existing hardware, or you could buy their custom hardware that has it already installed and comes with some perks at times. So we actually bought the Dappnode Obol edition. Me, Matt, and Lana, who are part of the Genesis squad. And yeah, that's part of trying to feature airdrops, which actually did pan out. It did help with getting airdrops and stuff of that nature. But let's see if I could click into any of these if it'll open for me. Okay, I think it's just loading. But yeah, so I think Dappnode kind of ties everything together. So the three with Obol, Lido, and then Dappnode kind of. As they say something religious, which I shouldn't say, but I won't say, but it creates that that triangle. Let's see, home, Obol Pro. Okay, cool. But yeah, curious on like hardware. Yeah, we haven't really talked too much about hardware. I know Matt has Dappnode, but I'm curious to hear like Louise, Trinity, what hardware you guys have experience with and or have an interest in. Yeah.
And just a quick note, there are the sales pop up occasionally. So when the holiday season comes along, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a sale here. So just something to keep in mind, anybody that's listening. And
Okay. So I would say I'm kind of like interested in the like the device itself, even though I would want to like do things the manual way, whereby run the OS on a PC I'm no longer using or something. But then I want to know, is there like a particular difference between the Dappnode Obol Pro and like just normal Dappnodes? Is there like a specific difference between them, or is just promo wise?
Say the last part again, Trinity.
Okay, so for instance, on your here you have like Dappnode Obol Pro, right? So I wanted to ask, like, is there like a difference between like the Dappnode Obol Pro and then like other Dappnodes, right?
No, it's purely a branding, purely a branding, tying it to NFT collectible type of thing. So they have the Obol one, which you get the NFT. They have a Gnosis one. I'll go find that one, which they'll give you get 2 Gnosis, I believe. Yeah, 3 Gnosis tokens. This one's actually, I think, really powerful because you can start staking with Gnosis, off the bat. So this one, yeah, gives you 3 Gnosis tokens for free. So yeah, it's kind of, and that Matt mentioned during the holidays, they definitely tend to do sales and stuff. So
Yeah, and from my side, if I'm not mistaken, the one that we got is the Obol one, because we got it as we had been hearing about the airdrop that they were planning to do. As far as I know, we didn't really get much successful with the airdrop, unfortunately. But we do have, if I'm not mistaken, 2 of the Obol ones.
when did you buy your node?
It was, if I'm not mistaken, around September or August last year. August, September,
Oh, you
October.
maybe because I couldn't find my tokens for a little bit with my, because I was like, yeah, like when we did the airdrop, I got some from my main address, but I was like, where's the rest of, because I bought the node. I didn't realize like I had signed up when you buy your node, you put an address, and I think I put my like ledger address. So let's make sure that address. I think it's too late to claim now, but there might be, of course, something in the future. And I think there's talk on the forum around enabling people to still claim again. So yeah, let me know. Yeah, ping me on that. I'd love to see if I can help you there.
Cool. Nice, amazing. Yeah, thanks for that. And I also ping Julio because he has been the person like leading that. And that would be quite nice if there is still some possibility of getting some Obol tokens. Nice.
I think there's also, don't 100% quote me on this, but so there's two things. There's two basic cuts. One is via Obol squad staking specifically. One is, I think, 10%, whatever, a cut goes back to Lido, obviously, because there's no free lunch. They're providing the 31 and change or 30 and change ETH, so that's totally fair. And then I think there's an optional 1% that you can give back to Obol. And then I think that that's somehow also tied to getting Obol tokens. Just throwing that out there.
Yep. So yeah, if we start more squads, we get back that 1%. Should open us up for more opportunities. And I think so. I think we're starting to get towards. So we got the last 15 minutes. Let's first do the POAP. So for anybody who's still on the stream, I'm gonna drop the secret code for the POAP. You could go ahead and claim it. Just go on the POAP app, and you could get your POAP for this fix.
And while Alpha's getting that, rewinding a little bit too. So in terms of squad staking versus solo staking, really the main benefit is greater uptime. So if you're solo staking, you go down, you're offline. It's pretty simple. With squad staking, it depends on the cluster size, but depending on you have 3 to 10, I think is roughly what it is. Then there's a specific threshold of members of that cluster who can be offline or even like acting maliciously, where you still have uptime. So for example, if you have a 3-person cluster size, you could have 1 person that's offline and you'll still be, the squad will still be online. If you have 6 people, you have a cluster size of 6, 2 people can go offline for but you'll still be, your squad will still be online. So because of that, basically, this is reflected in a lot of the Lido governance posts when they're like talking about the CSM and why they're going to continue to delegate more ETH in this direction. It's basically squad staking has greater uptime versus solo staking and versus the other options that Lido has for actually staking the ETH that they have in their protocol. So that's another one of those things. At the core, all this stuff is cool, but at the core, it's because it's just a better, more viable, higher uptime way to stake. So that's really like the main thing in my opinion.
Yeah, right. It's like the economics just makes sense too. It's not just an altruistic thing. It's an economic model here. And here's the infographic created by Sophie Verse in the Dev Guild, and it's showcasing kind of what Matt was just talking about, having a squad, having yield go to the squad, but also back to public goods. And this is the article we wrote. So to kind of segue into this very briefly. So if you want to learn more about kind of squad staking in particular and kind of what we're doing within the Dev Guild and stuff, check out this article. It's definitely should give you all the details and kind of the depth around staking or squad staking. And then Trinity made a great follow-up article that builds upon that touches more upon, I'd say, like crafting the protocol and kind of diving more into the economics of regenerative staking. So I'd love to pass over to you, Trinity, to kind of talk about some of the ideas and themes that you shared in this, and then this is also a good segue into the future of what we're doing.
All right. So initially when I read the Greenview squad initial squad staking introduction article, I actually enjoyed it, and then I started imagining, right? So how can we just move from a cluster whereby five people in a squad doing squad staking, to a system whereby we have over 100 squads going for that, maybe 1,000 squads in the future, who knows, right? And so in this particular article, right, I delved into what I would say I proposed as economic models or economic pathways we could take in a way to make squad staking sustainable, right from when we just have a single cluster, right, to when we go to 10 clusters, to when we go to 100 clusters. So basically it revolves around one, channeling the public goods staking rewards, instead of channeling it directly to just funding public goods, right? You take a percentage of what is going to fund public goods and you dump it back into squad staking, right? So this could be dumping it back into a system whereby you fund squads, you help people get notes and things like that, or you fund bonds for newer squads. So it's just a way of, okay, aside from funding public goods, which may not necessarily be squads, right? Let us just have this little carve out or little allocation whereby we are always throwing it back into funding newer squads, funding newer squads, funding newer squads. At a point, I feel like the yield across all squads. I mean, I did the calculations there. At a point, or in the next 10 years, the yield across all squads should be averaging like $1 million if we have this flywheel cycle whereby, okay, you take yield from one squad or two squad, you take a percentage of the yield, turn it back into funding another squad, take that same percentage from the three youth, form more squads. Over time, you have this whole system. Like you now have a proper system of community stakers and not just a single squad everywhere. Yeah.
Hmm. And this is just with the squad staking, right? This isn't not even factoring other staking primitives that
Yes,
could
just squad staking. Just squad
just squad
staking.
staking.
So
Yeah.
so there's a whole lot of economic potential when we start going into other staking primitives. So I think it's kind of like a very big dream, but I think it's something we could do, like moving in scale from $1,000 in yield to over $1 million over a period of years.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think it's about us creating that protocol, right? That around this and having the trust and the reliability and transparency that people then want to, pull the funds in and know it's, going to the right
So
things.
initially, So earlier on, I think while I was working on this particular article, right? So on FC, I was just dumb schooling on FC one day, and I saw this whole Ethereum cooperative thing, whereby they just raised 1,000 ETH, and what they wanted to use that 1,000 ETH to do was just solo staking, right? So they take this 1,000 ETH, put it into solo staking, and then use the yield to fund social impact things. So, but then if we have such opportunities and then we take it into squad staking, right? You see that we are as well empowering people, right? We are providing this little but reliable source of income for people across various geographies, and then we are also building this entire system whereby we could always fund what we want. We could always fund what matters without having to worry about funding scarcity like we currently are facing, yeah, in the regen design space.
Yeah. 100%.
Let me jump in here. Mostly with like a couple quick asides. So yeah, what Trinity was saying, where yeah, the magic of compounding yield is really how this like, you know, cooking in time. Like we need to survive, we need we need funds to operate, but ultimately like we need to kind of keep our belts tight and like set aside funds that we can, you know, continuously yield and compound on, so that eventually it's no longer like we're crawling to the next funding round to get funds. It's just this perpetual stream of yield that's being generated. That's the magic of it. And again, that's the same thing as legacy world, like, you know, non Web3 stuff. That's just that's just how the financial kind of structure of things actually works. And then the other thing I wanted to just quickly mention is, so when we're going through the process of getting the squad set up, basically it's just a splits contract. So it's mentioned in the Dev Guild paragraph article, but like for this Genesis squad, we just set up a splits contract where the 4 members get 20% of the yield generated, and then the 5th member, another 20% is going to public goods funding wallet, more or less. So the beauty of this kind of scaling is it's no longer like, it doesn't need to be like, all right, we all need to agree what wallet are we sending it into. It could kind of be like the individual squads, the individual clusters can kind of dictate like, okay, this is what's important to us. This is the wallet that we're gonna funnel a percentage of the yield to. So yeah, that's the public goods funding aspect is that it's within the splits contract. Funneling a percentage of the yield to a public goods funding wallet.
Mm-hmm. And then we got 5 minutes left. Maybe go a little bit over, but definitely, some people have to drop off at the top of the hour. Definitely would be remiss if we don't mention octant vaults and how they factor into this equation. So, right, with staking, the yield isn't that high, and it's like 3%. But the benefits, of course, are the hardware, right? There's a lot more benefits with staking from this kind of, getting involved on the infrastructure level. And in addition to that, with octant and vaults, they kind of add into where you could send that yield, into an octant vault, have a compound. And what octant vaults are, basically, just using trusted, DeFi strategies. I think the initial ones are using are based off of Yearn, if I'm not mistaken, and basically enabling, taking that yield and then funding that yield into different allocation mechanisms. So it's kind of creating a protocol around people creating different yield-bearing strategies, and then also people creating allocation strategies on to allocate the yield. So yeah, Matt, I don't know if you have anything you want to mention on octant, and kind of, I think even potentially some stuff in Greenpill, and kind of looking to get chapters set up, and different regenerative initiatives with octant vaults.
Yeah, I think the coolest thing about octant vaults is how it's basically just like similar to DAppNode, where it's like a little bit more plug and play for the layman. Octant vaults is like DeFi yield a bit more for the layman. Like it's like the bumpers are on, I think, where you're not just like out in the wild figuring out what you want to do. I think it's kind of like a more curated yield structure. But the coolest thing is connecting the octant vault to like cookie jar, flow state. So you're like taking these allocation mechanisms and like cooking yield into them. That is like ridiculously cool in my opinion. And yeah, I think on the Greenpill side, my vision, something I'd really like to see is very much, again, setting aside funds that are not earmarked for operations, not earmarked for specific initiatives, and like onboarding all the different chapters into the, utilizing octant vaults. And again, trying to create some sort of financial sustainability for themselves, but also, partially, I think a big part of what Greenpill is, it's a community that's like helping onboard people into the ecosystem. So it's not just like, we're here to do regenerative stuff. It's also like, this like safe place that you can kind of come in and like actually get a feel for how to be interacting with these protocols. That's what my experience was. I came in, I didn't know how to do anything. And, AFO largely and a bunch of others like kind of helped show me the way. And, for that, I'm forever grateful, because this stuff is scary. Like I'm petrified to touch things without, without having like somebody that is a trusted person kind of look over my shoulder and be like, am I doing this right? Am I about to like sign a transaction and my wallet's going to get drained? So yeah, so rewinding a little bit, I think the beauty of Greenpill is like, you know, the community aspect. Like we are, you know, it's a trusted community with people that have like built up reputation. And yeah, I think basically that distribution network is incredibly powerful of like exporting these curated tools and these curated things from the network to the chapters, from the chapters to the individuals that are a part of the chapters. Because you know, it's not like, oh, what is Greenpill? It's like, oh, it's a chapter. Like it's a little bit more, you know, out there than that, because to an extent it's even like a person who's not a core contributor to a chapter that's just like there because they care about public goods and they're following, you know, there's nothing necessarily wrong with them like being introduced to this useful tool and then carrying that over into, you know, their other community. Like it's not that like, you know, it's not like this closed door thing. It's kind of, you know, it's a bit fluffy and all over the place.
Yeah.
So I think I made my point. I can't even remember if there was another point that I wanted to make, but
You made a good point. Yeah, point well said. And just quickly, because I know people drop off because we got to do our promo. We have a workshop next week for public good squad staking where we're gonna dive deeper and really focus in on Obol, Lido, creating different squads. So this is very squad staking focused, but we'll also continue to highlight other primitives, keep you updated on Optin Vault and where they're at. I see Nathaniel looking how to contribute to Green Pill. Maybe Matt, you could drop a link to. There's a lot of ways you can contribute. It's more about what you want to. It's more about what do you want to learn. Or what skills do you want to grow in. So yeah, let us know, and I think we could help support you there. But yeah, so this workshop next week is going to be 2-hour session, really diving into things with the demo of setting up a squad. So it should be a fun experience if you're interested. So definitely, and we're also looking to get more people to help with helping build this public good staking protocol. Right, we need to do research. We need to have partnerships, and people help provide the bonds, or even provide the whole 32 ETH if possible to run squads and validate and kind of continue to refine this process and be able to enshrine it and over time, make it very attractive to inflows of capital to stake. So hope to see you guys all there. And I think just to close, I think just a couple quick last entities to mention. So Impact Stake was also to be part of our workshops. And this is like, if squad staking is like the nitty gritty, like getting your hands like really, Impact Stake is like the simple, one, couple clicks, you could, start staking and supporting public goods. JDeep is been doing this for years, who's leading this, as well as with launch nodes, which provides the infrastructure around this. And so definitely looking forward to continue to work with him and learn from him, because he's been doing this in the space for a while. But Matt, maybe you want to say some quick words on Impact Stake and kind of I know it's something that you've been jamming on.
Yeah, it was funny. I was raising my hand. I was like, oh, we gotta mention Impact Stake. So I'm happy that you did so. But yeah, so a quick aside, with Lido CSM v2, you can't compound the yield. So there is the possibility of generating ETH yield, getting that ETH, and then plugging it into Impact Stake. V3 will allow compounding, but just a quick note there. So yeah, Impact Stake is basically you deposit, I think it's either ETH or STETH or wrapped STETH. You choose which of these organizations you want to funnel yield to. I believe the individual can also decide what percentage of the yield they want to go into their own pocket and what percentage they want to go to the projects. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong there. But yeah, I think that's the case. But it's pretty simple. It's just like a very simple primitive for, if you have vanilla ETH, You want to generate some yields? Well, you can decide exactly what organization you want to support and how much you want to put into your own pocket, and that's about it. And then what do you do from there? Nothing. Just let time pass and let the yield kind of keep accruing. And yeah, I think it's like a wonderfully like very simple thing. And JD did also previously mention that it's not a taxable event, which I think is like a pretty big deal because I mean, right now, if you're sitting on some vanilla ETH, that's like, oh yeah, an LST sounds great. But you know, you swapping that is a taxable event, so it gets a little bit messy. But so assuming that you know, not financial advice, as this entire conversation is, I guess, for whatever. But you know, that is a pretty powerful thing. Yeah. So shout out JD, it's an impact stake, and yeah, I'm like I just sent a message out to the Regen Coordination Council right before this call started with a little bit of information there. So I have my fingers crossed that hopefully we can kind of yeah, get Regen Coordination as one of the projects that's on this dashboard. And yeah, I think it's one of the, okay, again, how many we're not mentioning that many things. There's like these couple of things where it's like, yeah, this is perfectly aligned for this regen to degen kind of ethos, and it's just an incredibly powerful financial primitive for, again, what, figuring out financial sustainability to fund people whose product and thing is like impact, which is, you know, you're not necessarily generating revenue, so you gotta, you know, this is the alternative. It's either donations or financial primitives to kind of, you know, make the most of the donations and whatever capital you have. Yeah.
And I want to give a quick shout out to also to James Smith from the EF for connecting us to JD. It's funny because I had connected with him on LinkedIn. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to cold message this guy. He doesn't know who I am, and then to have somebody just create a Telegram group for us really sped the process up. So I really appreciate that. And then yeah, shout out to Luis. He had the drop. But shout out, thanks for him for joining. A little bit like on Luis's background, he does like system design and stuff, and really, you know, excited to see how like the ideas he has for how we craft this, you know, protocol, and so yeah, he's doing great stuff in Barcelona as well. So him and Julio, we got it right, Julio, yes. All right, let's see. So I think, yeah, we could, you know, we're gonna close the next 2 minutes, but you know, there's just a couple things I want to mention. Of course, you know, Trini, if you have some closing thoughts, we'd love for you to share. I think that another big part of like the vision is really around privacy, and what nodes enable there, right? Because once you have a node, and it's not even something I even fully tap into yet, but you have your own RPC, like you have your own way to interact, like your own entry point into the same network. You don't, you know, have to use inferior or public infrastructure, and so your transaction, you know, could stay private and different things. So as privacy becomes more and more of a focus, also it's kind of leading into that and kind of helping people understand the benefits and set up that aspect of their node is also, I think, a huge unlock and benefit. Um, and um, and then also to add to like kind of community owned infrastructure. I know within Greenfield Nigeria for GG24, there's some ideas around DPIN and university education, and kind of, you know, creating these spaces for university students to own infrastructure like a node that's earning yield, that's powering, you know, microgrid, that's, you know, enabling an access point to do work, to come together and, you know, continue to create. So like it's very powerful in that sense. So I think there's a lot of things to explore there. A lot to even learn. I want to shout out John Roof, you know, doing work there, and Izzy was doing work there. Our late friend Izzy with TAS, Tech and Sun. So there's a lot of things that this all ties back into, right? It's not just purely a yield-based thing. There's a lot of like, it enables paying for bills, paying for, like, you know, electricity bills, so that you could have, you know, these, you know, microgrids and spaces. So yeah, just want to also share those thoughts. And yeah, Alwyn, I see Alvin and Nansel in the chat. Appreciate you guys joining as always. So you guys always keep the energy alive. So yeah, appreciate you guys being here. And yeah, Trinity, I'll pass it over to you if you have some closing thoughts, and then Matt too if you have a...
Okay, so just to reiterate on what Matt said, like when it comes to the whole idea of public good staking, compounding is the magic, right? So I think people out there who like are getting interested in this shouldn't be looking at it like a 2-year, 5-year thing. Should be looking at it like, okay, how do we keep this going in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years, in the next 20 years? I think that's when we can really reap the benefits of public good staking. Yeah.
Nice. And Matt, you got anything?
Hell yeah. Hell yes. And I know that's it's tough because like we're trying to survive. There's just the funding sources within this spaces are a little bit thin at times, but you know, we got to build for the long term, because even if we accomplish a whole lot in the short term, if things fizzle out, like what, it just doesn't seem like that's not the point, at least in my mind. So, you know, we gotta, it's one of, what's the, you know, you plant, society's great when you plant trees, you know, that you're never going to sit under when it grows. So yeah, so hopefully the next generation of public goods builders will have it slightly easier than us, but yeah, 100% what Trinity said. I jive with that. And yeah, I don't know what else there is to add there. You know, it's as we said at the start of this, like just like anything, when you're learning something, it makes no sense initially, and then you know time passes and you keep researching and learning and researching and learning, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and it's like, oh shit, I actually know what I'm talking about here. So yeah, I'd highly I'd highly recommend people that if this feels like something that is up your alley, it's, you know, just commit to the education process. And yeah, I threw a link to the Greenpool Network Charmverse in there, and you can get to the Dev Guild Charmverse as well from there. So yeah, come join the crew. And if you're an experienced node runner already, and can assist, that would be absolutely awesome, because we do need some level of like more technical people that can assist the less technical amongst us. I think that's incredibly important, because there is a bit of a learning curve there. And yeah, I guess we shall see. We shall see how this actually plays out over time. But I think it's a super powerful one. And thanks everybody for coming, and thanks as always, Afo, for running this thing. And yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Yeah, well said. And yeah, definitely we need the technical support. And if you have some bags too, if you have some ETH bags, you know, bring your bags here, support public goods if you care about public goods. And yes, it's compounding yield. I would also say compounding opportunity, because the credential, the privacy, like these things, you know, so it's still early enough to where you could tap into other, you know, forms of income, in addition to the compounding yield, and opportunities. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining. And this is just the start, and I'm really excited to go on this journey with you guys. And yeah, appreciate everybody. Have a good one.